I'm Glenn McGinnis and welcome to Outburst. This week, the future of farming in Canada.
We think that they don't exist. We just buy our food at IGA and like Metro.
The whole organic thing is really hard to attain.
It has to change to keep up with the times.
It's so key to international trade.
It's not good future because of cheap laboring and manufacturing stuff.
It's important to remain self-sufficient in Canada in terms of food resources, and it would be a big mistake to lose that ability to be self-sufficient.
I'm Stephan LeBay in Vancouver, where the future of local food production is facing pressure from all sides. Climate change, urban development, and a shifting economy has made this region a microcosm of what's to come across the country.
We must protect the farmland at all costs, because once it's gone, it's gone. We'll never ever get it back.
Kimmy Hendis and Karen O'Hobble have been working this 3-acre plot of land for the last 5 years. They grow organic carrots, potatoes.
They're clean, they're ready for eats.
And other vegetables on what they say is Metro Vancouver's most valuable resource, the best soil in Canada.
The nutrients in this, like they grow roots really amazing, they grow potatoes really amazing. This is the class 1 soil that we're talking about.
Canada's agricultural industry is as diverse as this great nation. From wheat to canola to livestock, farming in Canada has been a way of life for generations from coast to coast. But farming doesn't only put food on the table, it's also an important economic driver which sends Canadian products of all varieties to dozens of countries around the world. Since Confederation, the number of farms in Canada has dwindled, but agricultural operations have grown both in acreage and in sales. In 1871, the average farm had 4 pigs, 7 head of cattle, and 33 acres of land. In 2016, the average farm had 73 pigs, 65 head of cattle, and 483 acres of land. As important as farming may be in our day-to-day lives, the average person just doesn't know a lot about it.
What do I know about farming? Not very much.
Not that much.
Oh, I have no idea.
I don't really know too much about farming.
Pass, I'll pass. I don't know anything about farming.
Harvesters earlier. Thanksgiving obviously is in October. Thanksgiving and elsewhere is a month later. I don't know, we're in Fredericton, New Brunswick right now, and there's lots of potatoes.
Today we're at the Canada Agriculture and Food Museum. They call it the world's only working farm located in the heart of a capital city.
My name is Ariane Richardson. I'm an education officer here at the Canada Agriculture and Food Museum on the grounds of the Central Experimental Farm here in Ottawa. The purpose is to show people, but often city dwellers, where their food comes from, what agriculture is all about, how farmers do their jobs, really the whole process from farm to table. We get a lot of people coming who think their eggs and milk come from a refrigerator, really, and don't necessarily know about the work that's involved in bringing that to their tables. So from what we're seeing at the museum, we're seeing a lot of people who are interested in having their own gardens, having their own farm, so to speak, whether it's on their front lawns, in their backyards, who are looking to plant in city spaces or city gardens, and so I think it's really taking off in popularity.
This is not your typical museum. Tell us where we are and what we're doing here.
It's not. So we have live animals here. We're in the middle of the dairy barn. So this is a heritage building. It's been here since 1914. And this is where our 50 dairy cattle are housed during the day while they're waiting to be milked. And this is a place where visitors can come and first of all see these amazing animals up close. It's pretty impressive to be next to a dairy cow. They're really big. And learn about where their milk comes from. So every day at 4 o'clock, people can come and see a milking demonstration, see milking happening, and really get a sense of how that works.
So this is part of the milking machine that we use for the cows. My name is Jillian MacDougall and I'm one of the Education and Interpretation Assistants here at the Canada Agriculture and Food Museum. I help with the scheduling and the daily demonstrations and a lot of the programming here at the museum. A lot less people are farming now, so we have fewer people doing more work because they want to feed the whole country and other places. So not only do we have less people farming, but we have to find more efficient ways to farm. A lot of our visitors too, I find a lot of our older visitors might not have grown up on a farm themselves, but at least had that connection. Maybe a grandfather or an uncle or a family member had that experience that they could share. Where a lot of, especially the younger children or people maybe moving to Canada, might not have that experience and they might not know where their food comes from.
Most of the vegetables and fruit that we buy are import products, so I can assume that it's not going well to farmers.
I know my friend's mother's involved with milk.
Do you know anything about that process or what that
No,
means?
I just know that she's involved with milk. And I know my uncle has horses. And, oh! My father for a long time was a beekeeper. I helped him for a long time. Fortunately, the bees are going out. We have one hive now, but we used to have 106 when I was younger. I think it took about 6 years to get down to one. So, it's a problem.
Wow.
That's 105 hives gone in 1 year, and I'd say only about 30 of them were, for what we can tell, were like bears and other natural causes like winter. The other ones it's just more hives than you think you'd lose.
In my younger years, I dated quite a few farmers. And I was born and raised in a rural town, if you will, outside of London, Ontario. So I have some idea of some of the struggles and some of the commitment when it comes to farming. I think that farming has become much more of a savvy business than it ever was really regarded as before. So a lot of folks that are my age and farming in their 50s have some business degrees and very much are taking it as really looking at it as the business that it is. And I think that as a community, it would do us well to respect that more. And if we don't have farmers, we're in trouble.
I'm from BC and I have a couple friends from Saskatchewan and Alberta, so I have like a friend whose dad is a farmer, and I'm not sure if he's like certified organic or if just like trying to get that, but all I really know is like the whole organic thing is really hard to attain, and like to get organic status and to be able to call your food organic is really hard.
I grew up kind of in an agriculture community in southwestern Ontario, and agriculture was a huge part of that economy. So I know a bit about it. I know that a lot of the agricultural products got exported to the United States, and so that was a huge part of the economy there.
Oh, well, I do a lot of milking and clean out the cows and everything. So, I love farming. When I was a small little girl, that's what I do. I do a lot of farm. Yeah.
My mother grew up on a farm, and I lived on a 2.5 acre with chickens and ducks and when I was young, so I don't know a whole pile about it, but I think life was probably good back in those days compared to what I see these days with everybody being so pushy and shovey. So it's a crazy world in Vancouver here, especially coming from a small town. So I kind of like the farm country myself.
I think the family farms have, gone by the wayside, but I do think a lot of people now are doing small, little vegetable plots and whatnot, which is great. But as an economic, I don't know, I think that farmers need more support, and we need to get away from sort of single crop, big business farming. I think we need to go take a step back for a healthier environment and happier families and people who stay on the farm.
The issue of growing cannabis in greenhouses where there used to be growing vegetables. I don't think it's as big an issue as a lot of people are making it out to be, but that's about the only one that I can think of offhand, locally anyway.
Well, we produce as much as we can. Every province should do it to support your own province and the people within it.
Family farms have all but gone, it's all business. It's all business. So I think Canada's role in farming should be to explore and grow as much as they can, because we have a really good soil here in Canada for growing things.
What do you think's lost when the family farming culture is lost? What do you think else is what does that mean for Canada?
When the family farming culture is lost, that means a lot of decent moral values that Canadians have gone down the drain. Because the family farm raised a lot of good men, and farming was the way that everybody pitched in. If your neighbor's barn burned down, everybody would pitch in and help build a new barn and put a roof on it, you know. And nowadays there's nobody helping people like that. Neighbors don't help neighbors like they used to, you know. It's one for all and all for one, you know. It's sad, but that's the way it went.
The smaller farmers, I think, struggle somewhat, and farmers always have. And so, you know, wherever possible, let's support Canadians. I think a lot of Canadians are going to support Canadian dairy farmers as a result of the recent changes to the, you know, North American trade and, you know, opening up the Canadian market to U.S. dairy. But I think Canadians will continue to support Canadian dairy farmers wherever possible. I hope so, anyway.
In a time where we're kind of dwindling away our natural resources, maybe we should take a step back and think of what we can do that would be environmentally friendly, but like still keep the practices of like our old farming methods, but maybe apply them with new technology.
Ariane, what would you like every Canadian to know about farming? If you had the opportunity, which I guess you do now, to speak to many Canadians across the country, what would you tell them about farming?
I think I would invite people to meet a farmer and thank a farmer, honestly, because every single thing that we eat comes from the hard work of somebody else. And most people who live in urban environments especially don't really get a chance to see the work that's involved, see the stress that's involved. Here you get to come and you can meet some of our farm ops staff and really see the work that's involved, learn about how food becomes the product that we sometimes take for granted. So I think that's what I would want to share.
The future of farming is at a crossroads. Technology is quickly changing the way we operate, measure, and share. Privacy and information are becoming big concerns, and automation and artificial intelligence are on the way. Climate change is forcing innovation and desperation in many parts of the country. Every hour of sunlight, every drop of rain, every milligram of soil counts, and farmers are getting older. More than half of Canada's farmers are over the age of 55, and that has producers and consumers alike wondering what the future of farming will look like.
See this as one of the futures of farming, for sure. My name is Alita Burke. I'm a student at the University of Ottawa, and this is the grocer at the University of Ottawa campus. This is a 40-foot shipping container that actually grows food for the students of the University of Ottawa on campus. So we have 1,800 planting slots growing 5 different varieties of produce for the cafeteria here. We're growing basil, arugula, mixed greens, and a few other varieties of herbs and produce. So here we have spinach that's going directly to the University of Ottawa cafeteria. So the plants actually grow in water. So what that means is that it's a closed loop system using 95% less water than traditional agriculture methods and using 91% less land than what you would normally have. We started the project actually 3 years ago when we went up to Iqaluit for the first time in our territory of Nunavut and learned more about the problem of food insecurity in Canada. So we're trying to eliminate this issue of food insecurity across Canada.
You won't even know the challenge of getting fresh and perishable work. It's very impressive.
We have 5 across Canada, 2 in Ottawa, 1 in Kuujjuaq in northern Quebec, Kugluktuk in northern Nunavut, and 1 in Churchill in Manitoba. And what they've been able to see is reducing the price of the things that they're able to grow in the community by 53%, reducing the transportation kilometers from the average of 2,000 to just 2 kilometers or less in their community, and overall save a lot of time, effort, and money being able to keep everything in the community versus having to ship it all in from other parts of Canada and around the world. We've learned that it's a really complex issue across Canada and it requires a holistic solution. So this is a one step towards addressing that. I've learned a lot about hydroponics, the technologies around that, farming, and plants in general. So what the different types of plants are, what sort of nutrients and requirements that they have and they need, I think take with me for the rest of my life. I think this is a new look on farming. Not only can you grow much more in a smaller amount of space, but you're bringing in new technology to make that much more efficient. I see this as one of the futures of farming, for sure.
What is the future of farming in Canada?
It's not good future because of cheap laboring and manufacturing stuff. So, I don't know, like a good example is like lab-created food now. So we can recreate wheat, meat, stuff all like that. So farming looks like it could be, replaced.
I come from a farming background, and so I think it's super important that it stays with us.
In general, farming, I guess, is on the downturn just because of urbanization. I guess they're not treated fairly necessarily, but it's also kind of a dying economic sector.
I think it's good. I think they're trying to take a lot of advances moving forward and trying to conserve soil and environment, and there's a lot of long ways to go, but I think it's coming along.
I agree with the given science and technology right now. They're trying their best.
The biggest thing for me would probably just be trading with or working with the States and Mexico when it comes with the trade agreements and when it comes to farming. So I think just upholding, Canada should be able to focus more on what they have within its borders, and its farms, rather than relying so much on the United States and countries like Mexico to farm with.
I see more conglomerates coming in. I see a lot more of the family farms not being there anymore. About the only people that are going to be still farming will probably be the Hutterites eventually, I think. It's unfortunate. Some of the family farms have been in the families for generations, but just the way the economics of things are, I think family farming is on its way out.
I think farming is obviously very, very important, and there's a really movement towards the culinary society to use local farmed goods. I believe it's a great future. It's second only to oil in Alberta. People don't believe how huge agriculture is in our province.
The whole world seems to be going to mega corporations, like the day of the ma and pop farms seem to be gone. And, that's really sad. But we need, one of the things I think we need to do is, before we start spreading out, like South Edmonton Common is a good example. I don't know if anyone's seen what it was like there before they built. That was some really rich farmland. That was a shame to see that go, because it produces food. That's what we got to consider is it worth it giving up land for short-term gain, financial gain, greed in other words, in lieu of growing food for all of us? I can't answer that question, but that's basically how it makes me feel.
Should fertile land be protected from development?
There is a food crisis, so the more land we could get, the more food we could produce.
It's important to grow crops, but not as much as I think people think we need. So I see especially where I live, if you walk a bit, there's a lot of land reserved for farming, and I don't know if it's all used accordingly.
There's new farms. It's indoor farming, and they have you could grow vegetables up vertically, and it's like space. It's better for space. I don't know how to explain it. You could grow more in a small space than as if on land, you just have that one land, and then you got to flip it over every couple of years, because then it's gonna the soil is gonna get all used. So
Vancouver's often rated one of the best places to live in the world. There are no hurricanes here, no tornadoes rip through the city's suburbs. In an era of climate change, Vancouver, even Canada, has been dubbed a haven from the worst of what's to come. The same things that make Vancouver an attractive place to live also make it wildly expensive. Land is at a premium here. And that's put farmers on a collision course with developers, begging the question, in a hotter, more crowded future, how will the city feed itself? Once known as Vancouver's breadbasket, the island municipality of Richmond has evolved into one of the fastest growing residential suburbs in the metro area. Where there was once farmland, new homes, some as big as 11,000 square feet, now line nearby Number 2 Road. It's become a hot button issue across the city.
My heart broke the first house that was built on Number 2 Road, and it's been breaking ever since. They built the dike in 1907.
Farmer Harold Steves has been tracking the issue of development for nearly 50 years on Richmond City Council.
It was unbelievable. People just said, we just got to stop this, and that's why we had a change in Richmond Council. People just said, enough is enough. We just can't take that anymore.
Pressure to build new housing is intense. It's projected that 4.3 million will live here by 2050, a 60% increase in a population already reeling under a housing crisis. All the more reason, says Steves, to save farmland. Could you just tell us about what makes the soil so special here?
The soil here is alluvial soil, probably hundreds of years of grasses and marsh grasses growing in the land as the tides went in and out, adding humus and nourishment to the soil. So this becomes what we call Class 1 soil, the best soil in Canada.
I guess when a lot of people think of soil, they think it's something you can just make in your backyard with some compost and some hay or something like that. Is this really a renewable resource?
There used to be a saying that it takes 1,000 years to make an inch of soil, and I think that's about correct as far as nature is concerned. Only 1.1% of British Columbia is arable enough to grow small fruit and vegetables. That's not very much. You've got to save what you've got.
The Fraser Valley is our local food basin, and it is the most amazing soil we could ever ask for. Which animal doesn't protect their food source? It's insanity.
Every year we hear Vancouver in the top 10, one of the most livable places on earth. People are going to be coming here in droves over the next 30 years. What does that mean for farmers like you?
The more people come here, the more we have to hang on to the land around the urban centers to allow us to continue to grow food.
These farmers are especially vulnerable because they don't own the land they work on, leasing it year to year.
A lot of what we do, our planning and our soil management, happens for next year. Investing money and time into planting a cover crop, all of the kinds of things that you do for good soil management, if you don't know that you have the lease next year, it's really risky. We hear from the local fishermen, the sea level's rising. It's not a theory, we do see that on the ground, and it impacts us. So it's not just the rising sea level, it's not just the changing temperatures, it's the uncertainty of what's going to happen.
People don't believe us when we say the climate is changing, but we've seen it changing here for at least a decade, quite dramatically. So if the climate's going to warm up, if we're going to have drought in the American Southwest and in California, and we predicted all of that 30, 40 years ago, then we've got to save the agricultural lands that we have. We can't depend upon other countries to feed us if they're going to be set with drought and a changing climate.
Every Saturday during the growing season, Kimmy and Carano set up a farm stand here in town.
This is so nice.
Customers come rain or shine to pick up fresh, local produce.
All right, let's load it up here.
But people are worried about what will happen to farmers squeezed between creeping development and rising seas.
I think we're at a turning point, and I think if people don't step up and say something, we're going to regret it. If we don't start protecting our farmlands and helping our farmers, we're going to regret it in a very big way. Very, very big way.
The farmers say the issue cuts deeper than a debate over development and speaks to the growing disconnect between people and the land.
When you have a relationship with land and you see how much we share it with so many beings and how many people we feed, then to think of us not having it or not fighting for it is emotional. There's no getting it back when it's paved over. This is land that is living soil. So, it's living, and we need to treat it like a living organism, and it needs to have rights.
After years of sustained pressure from councillors like Harold Steves, Richmond is passing a bylaw to restrict the sizes of farmhouses from 11,000 square feet to 5,000. A day before the vote, the BC Minister of Agriculture came out with their own legislation designed to curb the construction of mega mansions on designated farmland.
How can government best support farmers?
the importance of standards of what we're exporting is a sensitivity, especially in Asia. We have to make sure those standards are being met in terms of what they're getting for what they're paying for. We've done a good job in that respect. That has to be maintained. The marketing of international agri-food is something the federal government can do, and I think does a pretty good job. I just wish that there were an ability of the federal government not to be seen as subsidizing grains through something like the Canadian Wheat Board when it had a single desk selling agency. That seemed to work well, but now, of course, a lot of that Canadian grain is being sold by very large American corporations contracting legitimately with Canadian farmers. So I think that it's very helpful to have those sorts of trade arrangements to build around a trade agreement, a specialized trade agreement, or a preferred customer kind of agreement in order to sell more agri-food.
I think they need more benefits for like when you have bad seasons, and because it's always hit and miss if they're gonna make their budget for the year. Some more insurance for them.
Trying to protect them, like they are trying to convince the population to consume their local products. That's a good thing.
Well, I think they do support them pretty well. But, you know, these you know, with the taxes and their subsidies and stuff.
Not have a carbon tax, I'll tell you that. But I would say, yeah, I mean, making industry efficiencies clearer, making sure that the supply chain management, if it is applicable and it's something that they want to make sustainable, make sure that it's clear and it's understood. Make sure that there's no games. It's just clear, forthright. Everybody understands how the funds flow through that industry, and just make it clear.
I don't know. I worked in the business a bit selling seed, and it's kind of sad to me what they get paid compared to what the people on the other side are getting paid, and the brokers are in between. I'd like to see a farmer get the fair price for his grain. If he got what the grain is really worth, I think they'd live a lot better, and it helps our economy. Everybody knows in Saskatchewan, the farmers got money and they're making money, the whole province is doing better, and it's important to the West. So I think it's something that they should work on.
Giving them proper equipments and always inventing new ways that they can increase their production.
I think we just need to for sure bio food. We need to improve that because it's from farmers. We don't give a lot help to farmers. We think that they don't exist. We just buy our food at IGA and Metro, but we need just to think some people then all the day they do their job to feed us and to keep great foods, and I don't know, we just need to think about them before just buy her stuff and don't care and put her food in the trash.
Get their grain moving better. They say there's no room. But yet, you look, there's 14 million fuel cars going, but no grain cars. We're getting screwed on our oil prices anyway, so we may as well be selling what keeps the country going. It was our grain that been keeping the country going for the last 40, 50 years. So support's what's good, and tell Trump to take it and shove it. He needs more oil, tell him to bring his price up. And then everybody would be happier.
I'm Glenn McGinnis. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. Next week, we're taking a deep dive into climate change and carbon tax. You can send us your thoughts at outburst@cpac.ca, or you can find us on social media. It's your turn to speak up, and we'd love to hear from you.